January was definitely an amazing start to 2025 for me when it came to reading. I actually ended up reading two arcs, which was a lot of fun, and then also listened to a couple of audiobooks. I will say the one strange thing about it is that I only read one physical book, the rest were ebooks and audiobooks, which is a little bit strange for me, and I did not have a lot to hold for my thumbnail, so that felt a little bit awkward, but it's fine. So in total, I read 5 books in January, and to start, I read Deadly When Disturbed by DM Barr, which was an arc. I was super excited to get this one because it was a thriller that's kind of compared to like Gone Girl and Girl on the Train, kind of like a very creepy, dark, suspenseful thriller that's filled with like morally gray characters, which I absolutely loved, and this one was amazing. I ended up rating it 4 stars and I really, really liked it. I did find it got a little bit slow in the middle, but the end totally made up for that and blew my socks off, honestly. I was not expecting it to end the way that it did, and I highly recommend this book if you are into thrillers like Gone Girl and stuff like that. Then I listened to the audiobook Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, and I rated this one 2 stars. This one kind of took the thrill out of thriller for me, and I felt like there was way too many narrators. I think there was like 4, and it was too much, especially for a thriller. I couldn't get into it. Every single time I started to finally get into one character's kind of mind and the way they think, we would switch to somebody else, and the time periods changed sometimes too. It just was very off-putting and jarring, and I didn't really like that. I found the narrators who did the audiobook did a pretty good job, but it just didn't make up for the lack of thrill in this thriller. It was kind of boring, honestly. So I was definitely a bit disappointed by that because this one had like really high reviews from a lot of people, and I was really looking forward to it for the longest time, and it was definitely a letdown to say the least. Then I picked up Making It So by Patrick Stewart. So this was another audiobook that I listened to that was narrated by Sir Patrick Stewart himself, which was very interesting. I don't rate autobiographies, but I will say that even though this one is a very chunky one, I think it is about like 500 pages, it stayed interesting the whole time, and it was really fun to kind of hear different aspects of his childhood. Like, he went through his whole life and didn't leave any details out, even if the details made him look bad, which some of them definitely did, so I gotta give him props for that. It definitely changed the way I see Patrick Stewart. I always saw him as very prim and proper, and that is not him. I guess I didn't really know him that well. I just knew his acting style, if that makes sense. Very interesting memoir though, if you are at all into Star Trek or X-Men or anything like that. Highly, highly recommend that one. Then the next arc that I read in January was called I'll Come to You by Rebecca Kaufman, and this one was another audiobook. It was very short. I think it was about 6 hours, but oh my goodness, once again, going back and forth between characters and like jarring me out of the story. I did not like that, and then it just also felt like there was not much of a point to this book. Like, when I got to the end, it just felt like, why? It was a slice of life kind of situation where you're seeing a glimpse into these characters' lives and how they all kind of interweave. It lacked an emotional punch. I definitely felt like I didn't get enough time to get invested with one character's story, and then we'd be launched into somebody else's story, and you could see the connection, but it was just lacking the emotional connection of it. I don't know how to describe it, but this one I rated 2 stars, and I don't think I'd recommend it. At least not the audiobook version. Maybe it would have been better to read this one physically. I don't know. Definitely not my favorite, and I don't think I'm going to be looking into any other books by this author just because it's not really my vibe. And then lastly, for January, I read Billy Summers by Stephen King, and this is one of his more thrillery action books rather than horror. Don't get me wrong, there was some horrific things in this book, but not nearly as bad as some of his other horror novels that I've read. And this one was really good. 5 stars all the way. Definitely check the content warnings if you are bothered by certain explicit things. I'm not going to say what because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but if you're the kind of person who doesn't like to read certain upsetting topics, I'd probably just check the content warning just to be certain that nothing's going to really ick you out, because there was definitely some stuff in this book that I was not expecting and it took me off guard, and it was very descriptive and graphic. So if you're going into this book at all, be warned that, yeah. But apparently it is also getting a movie adaptation, which I'm so excited about because I definitely feel like it would translate into a movie relatively well. I think it could make a very interesting film, and I would actually watch that. So here's to hoping that it is made into a film and they don't just completely destroy the story and make it utter trash. But anyway, that is my January reading wrap up. Like I said, very interesting kind of group of books, but I had a really fun time in January and I cannot wait to see what February holds. I'm hoping just as many books, maybe a few more like 4 or 5-star reads and less 2 stars. Let me know in the comments what you read in January and what your ratings were for them. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your week and happy reading.